How reliant on debt are you? A recent study that I looked at showed that non-mortgage related household debt was now over $10,000. Of course, our collective consumer debt is over 18 trillion now. What an awesome number. And our national debt, we all know what that is, and that's hovering just over $37 trillion. So is it possible to live without debt when humans apparently need debt like they need air to live? Let's explore that today. To really get into debt and look at the history of our debt, we have to go back. We got to go back quite a ways. You see, when this country was founded, just to gain our independence from Great Britain, we had to go into debt. By the late 1700s, we had already amassed about $75 million in national debt. Of course, by the time Andrew Jackson became president, he had figured out in 1835 how to get rid of that debt, so he was able to balance the budget and get it down to zero in 1835, the first and only time that we've had no national debt. By 1836, we already had some debt back in. Even though it was minor, it was about $37,000. Fast forward about 27 years to 1863, and our national debt had ballooned to $1 billion, from zero to $1 billion. We know governments are great at spending our money. Why? Because, well, it really isn't theirs, right? When you don't make it and you collect money, well, you're just going to spend it freely. So they create a lot of debt. But what about consumer debt? That's what I want to talk about today. How did we get started with debt? Well, around 1840, we really kind of sort of invented the buy now, pay later. Companies like Singer Sewing Machine had started this program where they'll give you a sewing machine for $1 down and $1 a week. Of course, washing machine companies, piano manufacturers, even farm equipment manufacturers all followed suit. They said, hey, buy now, pay later. This is great. And of course, debt was born. Right? We're now going to finance things, and if you're willing to pay a little interest, well, I will give it to you now. What really is debt? Debt is you wanting something that you can't really afford yet, right? I'm going to get it now, but I'm going to pay for it later. And to do that, you're willing to pay a little bit of interest and go into debt. So you're going to get a loan on that item. In modern days, of course, it's way worse because now we have all kinds of programs, and we've got things like subscriptions that attack your income on a weekly or monthly basis. You're signing up for everything. We have credit cards. We have payment plans. We're financing cars and homes and student loans. It gets me thinking, can we really live without debt? Is it possible to be debt-free, at least in the sense of our everyday things? I'm actually okay with people going out and acquiring a debt on their mortgage. Most people don't have $200,000 or $300,000 or $400,000 to just go buy a home for cash, and that takes a long time to save up that kind of money, even if you do. Having a home debt is okay, but of course, like any other debt, you want to attack it with a vengeance and get it off your books. But everyday debt, that's more of the debt we're talking about here, when you just get into debt for all kinds of little things. So I'm just going to start out by giving you a little checklist and see what kind of spending you do to see how much debt you're creating and if you are really reliant on debt. Number one, do you use credit cards because you're short on cash, but tell yourself that you're doing it out of convenience? See, of course, this is the narrative that's been sold to us by the credit card companies. Oh, well, this piece of plastic is just so convenient, so that's what you should be using. Cash is inconvenient. Well, the truth of the matter is, if you're spending cash, you're spending less. We're way more aware of our cash spending than we are our credit and debit card spending. We tend to just put it down and pay for another round or treat someone or treat ourselves. But the point is, we spend a lot more money. When it's cash and you're actually breaking that $100 bill, you feel it. You know that bill's about to get smaller. So you just spend less. It's a habit that you want to get into, which is using credit cards less. So if you're using credit cards as a convenience, then that's number one on the list. 2, are you placing small items on credit cards? Are you the type of person who buys regularly and uses your credit card to, say, buy gas, food, or even a night out? If you're doing that, then you are probably spending too much money and definitely racking up debt, and it's interest-bearing debt. 3, do you spend online regularly? I know it's easy to do today, and everybody does. We buy stuff, we shop online. But once again, it's been proven that you spend more money and you go into more debt when you do online spending, Amazon, eBay, Etsy, any of your favorite websites. You sign up for subscriptions, you do all this stuff online, and it ends up just sapping your bank account. And then by the time you notice it, it's too late. Are you upside down on any of your loans, meaning credit card payment, car payment, or student loans? Are any of those loans upside down? What exactly does that mean? To be upside down means you owe more than what you bought is currently worth. And yes, you can owe more on a student loan than it is worth. Have you ever taken out an unnecessary personal loan? Maybe to buy a toy, something you wanted, a boat, a motorcycle, a second vehicle. Maybe you took out a personal loan to go take a vacation with your family or friends, or maybe you took out a personal loan to try and consolidate all these other debts that you make that you can't seem to get a handle on it. If you've ever taken out a personal loan, that is definitely a sign of bad debt, and you are probably spending more than you make. And number 6, are you unable to cover a $1,000 or more emergency? If you have a financial emergency, like your transmission goes on your car, but you still need to get to work. What if a family member is sick and you need to take a flight to get to them? What if your property was damaged and you have to fix a window? What if you have a medical emergency? How many people, because most can't, can cover a $1,000 or more emergency out of their savings? If you answered yes to any of these things, and those are things that you are currently engaged in, then probably you are involved in a cycle of creating debt. Now, the good news is you're not alone, and there are lots of programs to help you fix this debt. The bad news is that you basically have no discipline and you have developed very bad habits. So how do we break this cycle? Well, we just said the word right there. The first thing you have to do is you have to create new habits through disciplinary actions. You have to be disciplined. You have to be aware of what's going on. Break it down. Maybe you should even go rewind this video and take a look at those 6 things I just mentioned and see how deep you are in any of those things. What are you doing? Because those are your habits right there. And then create a new discipline. See, years ago, we thought very differently. The whole idea was to sacrifice today for a better tomorrow. All the reports show today that people aren't making any sacrifices. They're saying, screw tomorrow, I want to live today. And this is my money and I just made it and I want to have experiences. I want to have fun. I want to travel. I want to eat out. I want to do everything. So they're making 0 sacrifices, and tomorrow is going to be a lot harder. You do have to sacrifice a little today, and you just do that by having a little bit of a discipline, and tomorrow will be outstanding. It's going to be so much better. The next thing you want to do is you want to use the tool that has been there all along, since the very beginning, since the country was founded and before. There was a little tool called budgeting. And if you can figure out how to budget, then you're going to get out of the habit of spending more than you make and creating this vicious debt cycle that most people seem to be in. So what is a budget? Just broken down very basically, it's taking the entirety of your income and breaking it down into very usable categories. I like to do what's called paying myself first, right? I work hard, I want to have some fun, I want to do things, so I will take X amount of my pay, and that will just be cash in my pocket for me during the week that I don't exceed. I know that's the money I have for spending, and that's it. I'm not going over budget, whatever that number is. I also need to set aside a bucket for short-term expenses. That's going to be, in my case, it's going to be mortgages, it's going to be utilities, it's going to be the cost of running my businesses or paying employees, right? So those are all short-term. But then there's long-term expenses. There's investments I'm making. There's larger payments and deposits that have to be made on things like insurances or maintenance that might be coming up, or maybe a bigger ticket item that we're buying for a business, or maybe even investing in a new business. That's a long-term expense. But then I still need my POM account. I still need my long-term savings. Remember that, can we cover a $1,000 emergency? Well, in my life, that $1,000 emergency might be a $5 or $10 or $15,000 emergency. So you have to have your POM money put aside. That's peace of mind account. That really is an emergency fund or a long-term savings. So there's different categories. The beauty of creating a budget is you can create it however you want. You determine the amounts that go in. You just don't want to exceed them. You want to work within certain parameters. These tools have always been there. They're tried, they're true, they're tested, and they're there for you too. So don't get in this cycle of just creating bad debt long term. If you are in a little bit of debt, then what you want to do is you just want to put a magnifying glass on it, and then you want to get a budget together and you want to develop some discipline around your budget. My name is Daniel F. Margasa. You are watching the Almost Criminal Millionaire channel. If you enjoy learning about the topic of money, finance, and how to have more money in your bank account, then please like and subscribe for more.